This is a video about making a poem. It's a video for you to use at home on your own, or if you're a teacher, it's a video to help you work with a group of students. It's particularly about making a poem across languages or with a multilingual, multicultural group of students. It's sponsored by Creative Multilingualism at Oxford University, which in turn is sponsored by the Open World Research Initiative. And here in our school, we work particularly with the Oxford Centre for Creative Translation, and particularly with their interest in prismatic translation, which means translation which brings out all the shades of a language. This video comes from a very multicultural environment, a very multicultural school. We have nearly 50 languages, and we've gathered some of those different speakers here today. So this video comes from a school with nearly 50 languages. And I'm Kate Clanchy. I'm the writer in residence here at Oxford's Bios Academy, which is a small comprehensive to the east of the city of Oxford. I've been doing this job for more than 8 years now, and so I have gathered some exercises which work particularly well, and particularly with our multilingual, multicultural students. What we're looking at today is a poem in translation, a poem by the great Bengali poet Tagore, and a version, a very creative but multilingual version by a student, and then how that exercise can be opened up to make other versions. I'm very fond of Tagore, but probably not as fond as Tarzina, and Tarzina's going to introduce him for you now.
Okay, so the first poem that I'm going to be reading is called I Cannot Remember My Mother, and it's a poem written by Rabindranath Tagore, who is a poet of Bangladeshi descent, and he wrote about a century ago, or just over, and his poems focus mostly on Bangladesh or on his mother, and he was also a nationalist, so he cared about the poorer folk, even though he did come from a wealthy background. So his poems are really they sound really educated as well, but they also sound quite simplistic, and I think it's quite interesting. So this one is about his mother. It's not too difficult of a poem, and I think that kind of resonates with the fact that he's a child in the poem.
Tagore wrote so much. That's one of my problems with getting to grips with him, books and books and books of poetry. But his lyrics are exquisite, and this particular small lyric is particularly moving. It's he lost his mother when he was 3, and it's about his memories of her, because he would say eventually he can't remember her. But of course he has a full sense of remembering her, and in this poem he makes a journey from saying I can't remember her into her fullness, the full sense of how she could dominate his world as a 3-year-old.
I cannot remember my mother, only sometimes in the midst of my play, a tune seems to hover over my playthings, the tune of some song that she used to hum while rocking my cradle. I cannot remember my mother, but when, in the early autumn morning, the smell of the Shuni flowers floats in the air, the scent of the morning service in the temple comes to me as the scent of my mother. I cannot remember my mother, only when from my bedroom window I send my eyes into the blue of the distant sky, I feel the stillness of my mother's gaze on my face has spread all over the sky.
So in fact, she fills the entire sky. Now, I don't remember is something that my students here very often say about their home countries, especially if they've come before they were 5 years old. They say, I don't remember my language, miss. I don't remember my country. I don't remember anything about it. But in fact, those memories are very, very powerful and often surface in their poetry. And a few years ago, Rukia, who's Tarzina's sister, wrote a version of the Tagore. I didn't realise it was a version of the Tagore at the time. I think that's what it is, in which she enacts that immigrant statement, I don't remember. But it's with great irony, because the memories come flooding through in this really beautiful poem, which Tarzina is now going to introduce and read for us.
The second piece is a poem that was written by my sister. She's my older sister, 2 years, and she'd written this poem quite a few years ago, actually. I think maybe when she was about, was it 16?
Really 16.
Yeah, 16, yeah. And it's kind of a take on Rabindranath Tagore's poem, and she talks about what she can't remember, but in essence the poem has like a lot of stuff that she does remember. It's kind of like Kate was saying before, it's sort of ironic as well. So this is the poem, it's called My Mother Country. I don't remember her in the summer, lagoon water sizzling, the kingfisher leaping, or even the sweet honey mangoes they tell me I used to love. I don't remember her comforting garment, her sacks of date trees, providing the meagre earnings for those farmers out there in the Gulf, under the humidity of the sun, or the mosquitoes droning in the monsoon, or the tipper-tapper of the rain on tin roofs, dripping on the window, I think.
This frame that Tagore and Rukia create that says, I don't remember, and then gives you the very full memory, is a beautiful shape, beautiful ironical shape that gives grace to just even very fragmentary images, and very liberating for students too. There's something easy about saying, I don't remember, than it is about, I do remember. So it's an exercise that bears doing many, many times, especially with students who've lost a country for whatever reason. And you just ask them to start with that statement, I don't remember, even as if you might see that they've got a few questions about that. And then we ask them, so what are the things that you don't remember about your country? What about the tastes of your country? What about the food that you used to have? Is there something that you used to particularly like they told you about, like the sweet honey mangoes? What about the way that everything was put into the pot? What about those tastes? What do you remember? What about the smells of your country? Because that's probably goes with that. What do the plants smell like when you walk down the street? What did your house smell like? What did your school smell like? What did the mountains smell like? What are the smells that you've lost in your country? You put them down as a list of things that you don't remember. What about then the sounds of your country? What about the voices and the words that you don't remember? And what about the feelings, the textures? What about things that held you? What is the feeling of your grandma's lap? What's the feeling of the weather there? What clothes do you wear there and what do they feel like? How do they touch you? And what about the things you see? Give me a visual image of your country. What's the colours of it? So think about being a little camera. What's your close-up and what's far away? What don't you remember? And if you want to frame your little poem, you might want to think, but sometimes I remember, and focus in on something in particular. Sometimes I remember. I'm sure I remember, but make that just one detail. What are you sure you remember? One taste. And we had some really powerful poems coming out of that in this group. I'm going to share some of them here. So this is an exercise that you've got students who often write in their own language to write straight into English. I think it's something about that denial, that shape, I don't remember. This is, and they make some very interesting mistakes, or whatever, the soft of the snow, the touch of tenderness. This is Inas's version.
I can't remember my country. I can't remember the house that gathered my family. I can't remember the smell of tangerines in my country. I can't remember the smell of the morning in my home. I no longer feel the smell of the snow when we were playing in the winter snow. The smell of jasmine and amber. I can't remember the anomalies of childhood. I feel as my country is teasing me. My daughter, why do you leave me and go to a country other than you.
I feel as if my country is teasing me. My daughter, why did you leave me and go to a country other than me? So it's your country speaking?
Yeah.
That's really good.
And so yeah, it's really good. So your country's turned away from you like an angry parent. Amazing, all these countries are filling up the room. It's a very grand Arabic piece of personification there. Aisha's from Colombia, and she's conjured a person.
I don't remember her sitting in the warm, put back 2 rooms, as if to hide her disability from the kids playing outside on the road. I don't remember her, Maria, the maid, her second mother, the glass wall who we could look through so we would never get too close. I don't remember her eyes or her sad old wheelchair and her lips who rejected food. I don't remember, she didn't remember nothing. And why everyone was so sad when she died, because she was just a Colombian skeleton. I do remember caring. I do remember not caring until the cries of my father broke the moon.
Amina, who you hear who's got a version here, she took that poem away, and this is a good thing to learn, that if you only get a first version in a school session.
I can't remember my country. I lost my country and everything I was had before. I can't remember how it was soft of the snow in my country. I can't remember the feel of the warm air in summer.
So Amina took that poem away and developed it, and it's her first poem written straight into English. It's really a very, very beautiful and fully finished piece now. It's called The Doves of Damascus. I lost my country and everything I had before, and now I cannot remember for sure the soft of the snow in my country. I cannot remember the feel of the damp air in summer. Sometimes I think I remember the smell of jasmine as I walk down the street, and sometimes autumn with its orange and scarlet leaves flying in the high Damascus sky. But I am sure I remember my grandmother's roof garden, its vines, its sweet red grapes, the mint she grew for tea. I remember the birds, the doves of Damascus. I remember how they scattered. I remember trying to catch them. So to summarise, this is an exercise about reading a poem and borrowing a shape. So we read the beautiful Tagore poem about the loss of his mother, and how yet through her images, the concrete images, she fills the sky. And Rukia's poem, which takes that idea, it's about the loss of a country, and it's about the pose of the immigrant, the immigrant that says, I don't remember, when in fact this great motherly presence, this great loss is behind you. It uses an ironical shape that gives a graceful, clever little shape even to fragmentary thoughts. So of course the students can move on and lose it if they like. So you borrow that shape, that I don't remember, and then you make sure that, as Tagore and Rukia do, that you work through the concrete images. So it's, what are the smells that you don't remember? What are the tastes that you don't remember? What are the sounds that you don't remember? What are the sights? Make it very real. Make sure that you contact your own experience. It could be quite an expansive, listy sort of a poem. It could be something much more focused. As the poets develop their own version, they can take themselves on a little journey. Sometimes I remember, I'm sure I remember, I certainly remember. You can have a series of contrasts working their way through. This poem will breed multiple poems, as it already has, in multiple languages, which is what we can see here. And in some of these phrases, like the soft of the snow, we can see the real creativity that comes from multilingualism. Good luck.